What's up, y'all? What's up, YouTube? Could y'all please like and subscribe to my new YouTube channel? Please. I'm sorry, my wire got short, or might got it too high or something, but I'm just learning, y'all. So work with me, please. Today I wanted to talk about big meats, big screech, a rat. And okay. So why does everybody call Rallo a rat? I'm just asking a question. Everybody like they turn their back on Rallo. Nobody messing with him. They all call him a rat and everything. But y'all ran and y'all was dying to go see Big Meat. Like, so y'all take like, oh, it's not enough evidence to prove Big Meat is really a rat. But he is. He's a rat. He signed a Rule 11 C1C. I'm about to show you guys. It's on, if you guys go to Byron Blake YouTube channel, right? His name Byron Blake. And he break down Byron Blake breaks down Big Meat's paperwork better than anybody. Like he did a real good job. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've not seen anybody break his paperwork down the way Byron Blake did. But this is how I want to show you guys the proof.
Make your winter lake escape to Erie, PA, where the lake may be frozen, but the hospitality.
November 19th, 2000.
So
November 19th, 2007.
Y'all don't want to believe Big Meat's a rat so bad. Like, y'all defending this dude like it's you. Like, bro, this dude's a rat, man. And he's a snake. He's a piece of shit. Like, how you turn your back on 50? Like, you see, like, 50 took care of your family. He I guess see, I can't. Once it go, like, I don't know how to work this phone yet. Good. Maybe I might have to go on my iPhone one. But anyhow, this is the paperwork. This is 20 minutes, so bear with me, guys. It's gonna be a little lengthy, and we're gonna like stop here and there, and we're gonna talk about it, and then at the end we'll also talk about it more. But this is all for educational purposes. I'm not here to slander anybody. This is stuff that's already out on the internet. Not making no claims like it's mine. This is goes to the person that actually put out the video. I ain't trying to take his shine and nothing. I just want to get the dude his props. Like, Byron Blake did a great job, man, and everybody like was worried about what Jake 1090 Jake broke it down, but he didn't even do a good job. Like, he didn't see the shit like Byron Blake. Man, Byron Blake he broke that shit down to the T, man. Like, crossed his eyes and dotted crossed all his T's and dotted all the I's. Like, he did a bad boy. Like, and you should ever see how he exposed 1090 Jake also as a fraud. So, yeah, y'all can check that one out too. But I ain't gonna hold y'all up. We about to get to it. You ready? Let's get it, y'all. Like, subscribe. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. It only helps. So please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel, man. All the likes and subscribes help a lot, man. I'm a new dude trying to get, you know, into the streaming shit, and I really ain't got uh, anybody. So I mean, nobody really know about me too much right now. But we gonna work at this, man. We gonna keep it going. We gonna work, and we don't tell no lies. We keep it 100 on here, man. You know, tell no lies, no false stuff. Everything is alleged. I guess you have to say alleged so nobody can sue you. Nothing. But I put nothing bad on people. Only what's already out there. I ain't gonna slander nobody. I ain't trying to, make nobody look bad. But I just want to expose fake. We keep it real. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. My name B Jizzle, BJ. Uh, I want y'all to like, subscribe, please, man. It'll really help a lot. But I ain't gonna hold y'all no more. Let's get it.
Historic street figure Demetrius Flannery, aka Big Meech, stood in front of the judge. He was here to enter a guilty plea, finally bringing some closure to this battle for his freedom. Over the years, things would be pretty quiet for Meech. That is, until an old friend by the name of Cuffy Gatlin would release court documents accusing Meech of setting him up through a third party by the name of Tammy Cowens. The accusations would seem to fall on deaf ears until the loud voice of 50 Cent echoed them throughout the hip-hop community. Following 50 Cent's explosion, the internet would go into an uproar, with many people attempting to decipher whether Meech cooperated or not. Documents would surface proving that Tammy was CS1, the confidential informant who was responsible for initiating the investigation that led to Cuffy's arrest. And Tammy would testify during a suppression hearing that she entered into the informant agreement in order to get a time cut for Demetrius Flannery. Still, there was no documentation other than...
Listen, all right. Also, like, so my mother, so say I go to prison, my own mother cannot go work with the federal government without my say so or my approval. So come on, man, get out of here with this. He didn't know, bro. He had no choice, but either he approved it for her to do this on his behalf. He could not, even if it was his wife, his mother, no matter what, they had to get his approval to do any of this. Like, come on, y'all.
Tammy's word that she was doing this on Meech's behalf, or was there? In order to truly understand the relationship between Meech and Tammy, you would have to go back before Cuffy's indictment, to the date of Meech entering his guilty plea. During the November 19th plea hearing, the judge will question Meech about the terms of his agreement with the government. The court: have you read the indictment? The defendant: yes. The court: have you discussed with your lawyer the charges, particularly counts 3 and 10, which you intend to plead guilty to? The defendant: yes. The court: in count 3, the offense is continuing criminal enterprise. Do you know what maximum punishment under law is for that? The defendant: yes, life. The court: count 10 is money laundering. Do you know what the maximum punishment?
Oh yeah. Also, y'all know for what Big Meech was charged with and arrested for, that his minimum was 30 years. No matter what, it was 30 years minimum or life sentence to life he could have got. So remember that. And White Boy Rick got the most time in the Michigan history for a nonviolent offense. Okay, y'all remember that. Let's get back.
Punishment under law for that is? The defendant: I think 20. The court: that's right. Has anyone threatened you or forced you to plead guilty? The defendant: no, sir. The court: there has been a plea agreement. Mr. Eisen: on the CCE, Your Honor, there is a mandatory minimum as well. The court: okay, well, I asked him if he understands the maximum under law. there has been a plea agreement between you and the government, right? The defendant, yes. The court, what's your understanding of the agreement? The defendant, that I won't be enhanced. The court, pardon? The defendant, that I couldn't be. The court, well, first of all, what's the sentencing range? The defendant, 30 to life. The court, and on the basis of the guidelines, the defendant, right. The court, that's a recommended. The defendant, right. The court, and that takes into account your criminal history and the nature of your offenses. The defendant, right. The court, and there's a minimum, right? The defendant, 30. The court, 20 years, right? Mr. Eisen, which happens to be the prosecutor, that's by statute, Your Honor. The court, yes, by law. But there's also a provision in the agreement, isn't there? That I can't, at this point, Meech's attorney immediately interjects. As soon as the
Yeah, I heard that, right? Because they was about to expose Meech that he cooperated. So his attorney, like, stopped the judge real quick. And he was making them wave gestures, hand signals. It's all in the paperwork. Like in the Franks here, like they were doing hand signals, and he kept interrupting the judge, so the judge wouldn't like get to the part where admit, and so it wouldn't be in the dockets or nothing that he cooperated. For real, I'm telling y'all. Watch, listen.
government begins to talk about
Watch
the
here.
provision,
I'll rewind a
court
little because
begins
I
to talk
stopped.
about that's by statute, Your Honor. The court, yes, by law. But there's also a provision in the agreement, isn't there?
What's his law?
That I can't, at this point, Meech's attorney immediately interjects. As soon as the government begins to talk about the provision and the court begins to talk about the provision, Meech's attorney immediately interjects. He doesn't want that part to go on the record.
You hear?
No, the agreement is that the guidelines are 30 to life, but, and then the judge stopped him and said, let me do it. He said, okay, I'm sorry. Now, it's important to note that during this segment of the hearing, the judge has established that Meech has entered into a plea agreement and that his statutory guidelines range was 30 to life. For those who don't know what a statutory guidelines range is, the United States Federal Sentencing Guidelines are rules published by the United States Sentencing Commission that set out a uniform policy for sentencing individuals and organizations convicted of felonies and serious Class A misdemeanors in the United States federal court system. Now, let's continue. Court, you know that's why I took the job. However, the court must impose a sentence of imprisonment on count 3 of at least 20 years. Mr. Feinberg, yes. The court, that's a provision of the agreement, right? Mr. Feinberg, yes. The defendant, on both counts. The court, well, I understand, but there is a provision that I have to give you at least 20 years. The defendant, right. The court, and if I don't, the government can withdraw from this deal? The defendant, right. Now, right here, the judge has documented another portion of Meech's plea agreement with the government. So we now know that based on this provision that Meech has, his guideline range is 30 to life. And there is an agreement with the government that the judge must give him at least 20 years or the government can back out. Let's continue. The court. Okay, when you go to prison, after you get out, there's a period of supervised release. The defendant, yes. The court, right? The defendant, yes. There is also a $200 special assessment, right? The defendant, yes. And I can impose a fine on either count up to $250,000, right? The defendant, yes. And if I let you withdraw your plea for any reason, they can use these statements made here today against you, right? The defendant, I guess, yes. The court, okay. And there is also a forfeiture, but there is nothing specific set forth in the forfeiture, right? The defendant, right. And if I accept this agreement and we go forward, any other charges against you are dismissed, right? The defendant, yes. And if we don't exceed what the agreement says, you have no right to appeal, right? The defendant, right. And if it should turn out that your criminal history is different than that which you have all agreed upon, I can go higher, right? But you can't get out of it. Here, the judge is informing Meach that if some new information comes out, or if he leaves something out when assisting the probation officer, that the judge can go higher than what the agreed upon max is.
Yeah, when he's doing his PSI, like if he don't admit to all his crimes he ever done in his life, and he like left something out, and they find out something, they can enhance it. But okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Let's get it.
Meach would expose that max with his reaction. The defendant, go higher than what? 30? The court, yeah. I don't know how I can go higher because I think that there is a provision, is there not? Mr. Leibson, who was the other prosecuting attorney, would chime in and say, there is a standard provision, but it's essentially moot. If you don't know what the word moot means in a court of law, an issue or case being moot means that it has lost its practical significance because the underlying controversy has been resolved one way or another. So now that we have reviewed
Tell me he ain't break this shit down good, man.
the transcripts of the plea hearing, these are the things that we know from Meach's own acknowledgement. Based on his criminal history points and relevant conduct, his guideline range was 30 to life. He then...
In other news, Ohio residents
telling y'all,
are
watch
happy
this.
to
All
hear
right,
this.
this is
It just came out. There's a new website where any...
A hot and steamy au jus is the
telling
king
y'all,
of
watch.
dips. It enhances the flavor of everything. Roast beef, onions.
Here we go.
He then made an agreement with the government, and based on that agreement, he would plead guilty. And in exchange, the court would not be able to give him less than 20 years, but the government would agree to seek no more than 30 years. We also learned that there is a provision that would allow for Meach to get more than 30 years, but based on his agreement, that provision was moot. Now let's break down what this means. A guidelines range of 30 to life means Meach can get no less than 30 years if convicted. By entering into this plea agreement, Meach was turning his minimum of 30 years into his maximum and lowering his minimum down to 20 years. This signifies that Meach made an agreement with the government for a downward departure. If you don't know what a downward departure is, a downward departure is when the federal judge...
All right. When you get a downward departure, a lot of people think that means that you told or whatever, but it's not necessarily though, because downward departure that means okay. So like Big Meech's case, you could tell he told because the government never will agree to it. Only the judge will. Just watch, listen.
Poses a defendant a sentence that is lower than the minimum sentence that was suggested by the sentencing guidelines.
Hey, let me rewind a little bit.
Not every downward departure is bad. As I just mentioned, it usually happens.
See, my bad. I went up
when a judge deviates from the guidelines because you may have been less involved than others.
Hold on.
May have.
What the hell happened? All right, here we go.
This signifies that Meach made an agreement with the government for a downward departure. If you don't know what a downward departure is when the federal judge imposes a defendant a sentence that is lower than the minimum sentence that was suggested by the sentencing guidelines. Now, not every downward departure is bad. As I just mentioned, it usually happens when the judge deviates from the guidelines because you may have been less involved than others or may have some special circumstances like a learning disability or something. The judge might just feel the sentence is too steep, but the government agreeing to a downward departure signifies that a defendant has cooperated or assisted.
Now, you heard him, right? So if the judge gives it to you, then that don't mean you cooperated. But when the government agrees to it and pushes the judge to do it, that means you cooperated. So Big Meech, the government pushed the judge to do the downward departure, not the judge feeling that it might be too steep because it's only drugs, no violence or nothing, whatever, you know, anything like, or he was slow or anything. So you heard that part. So that tells you right there, he cooperated. All right, let's get it. Back at it, y'all. I'm sorry. Wait, can y'all see it right? I'm sorry, but here we go.
Them in some way. Before we move forward, I want to demonstrate to you all the types of games that the courts play. If you look at Meech's actual plea agreement on paper, you will see that there is a difference in the terms that are shown and the terms that were mentioned in the courtroom. The plea agreement actually includes a clause that said it will be void if not signed by March 6th of 2007, but it shows that Meech didn't sign it until November 14th of 2007.
Damn.
So the actual plea agreement that you can go look up on the docket is not a true representation of the terms that were presented in the courtroom that day. In fact, if you look at the date of the actual plea hearing, it was 5 days later on November 19th, 2007.
Yeah.
They made several oral amendments to the agreement,
Wow.
which they were entitled to do so legally, but by doing it this way, they also ensured that the true details of the agreement would not be in the actual copy that would show up on the docket for the public to view. That still leaves the question of
See, here. Mm-hmm. Rat motherfucking bastard.
several oral amendments to the agreement, which they were entitled to do so legally, but by doing it this way, they also ensured that the true details of the agreement would not be in the actual copy that would show up on the docket for the public to view. That still leaves the question of why would the government agree to a downward departure? To find this information out, we have to look at Meech's sentencing hearing. In a sentencing hearing, both parties get to present evidence. Usually, the government will argue why you should get a higher sentence, presenting what we call aggravating factors. On the other hand, the defense will argue for a lower sentence, presenting what we call mitigating factors. In this instance, the government presented no aggravating factors and simply asked that the defendant be placed near his family in Atlanta. In mitigation, the defense would simply argue that Meech was responsible for getting his brother Terry to plead guilty and that he should get credit for that.
Wow. You see that, right? Y'all heard that shit? He was arguing with the prosecutor, said like, man, I should get credit for getting my brother, you know, talking my brother into taking the plea, and he got 4 other dudes to take the plea because watch, listen to this cat.
Factors. In this instance, the government presented no aggravating factors and simply asked that the defendant be placed near his family in Atlanta. In mitigation, the defense would simply argue that Meech was responsible for getting his brother Terry to plead guilty and that he should get credit for that. The judge would ask, "Are you saying that the government should make a motion for substantial assistance?" To which he responded, "No. Of course, we've seen all along the lengths his attorney has gone through to make sure that no evidence of his cooperating shows up on the paperwork. So his quick denial was expected, but it was still almost like the judge was saying, are you saying that this deal isn't good enough?"
Yeah.
Some of you may be sitting here questioning, why would Meech's attorney feel like he should get a deal for getting his brother to plead out?
Listen.
Well, let's break it down. According to the investigation in this case, Meech and Terry were identified as the 2 heads of this organization. During Meech's plea hearing, not only did he admit to his role, but he also agreed to admit he supervised 5 people named in the conspiracy and that at least 3 transactions he was directly involved in.
Did you guys hear that? This cat is a rat bastard.
Meech and Terry were identified as the 2 heads of this organization. During Meech's plea hearing, Not only did he admit to his role, but he also agreed to admit he supervised 5